In 1990, the Bessie Burton Sullivan Skilled Nursing Residence housed 135 elders, nearly filling its 139 resident capacity and employed 200 nurses and administrative staff. Many of the residents were longtime Alzheimer's sufferers, and a third of them were on Medicaid. In 2007, Seattle University announced their decision to close the Bessie Burton Nursing Home. University Senior Vice President Tim Leary cited a growing student population as the need to close Bessie Burton and replace it with student dorms. He also explained that the nursing home fell outside of Seattle University's core mission of educating students, although the nursing home was opened under the assumption that it would be an asset for nursing students to engage with elder community members. The university denied claims that it was closing Bessie Burton because of financial reasons, although Tim Leary did concede that, to quote, "it wasn't a moneymaker." All 135 residents and 200 staff were given 60-day notice to find somewhere else to go, an especially difficult task for the large group of residents that were dependent on federal assistance. Today, Bessie Burton Sullivan Skilled Nursing Residence is known as Chardon Hall, home to the 140 students that live there. We wonder how many students know the history of the facility they live in today. Bessie Burton was never truly a public space. It was owned by a private university, and access to the facility was limited to residents and students of Seattle U. However, the utilization of the space was not for accumulation of capital, but rather for the maintenance of community elders' health and enrichment of nursing education. Its function as a private space was to protect and serve public communities. This seems to complicate what we know about privatization.
It was renamed a Jesuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
By a Jesuit. For a Jesuit. So.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. Brian Hooks, Assistant Director, Residential Life. To most degrees, yes, the system is set up for the majority identities, and I get trying to keep it to the system is set up for white males because that's what it was structured on, right? Like that's the beginning since the founding fathers, right? Like. Foundation of the Constitution is based upon white owning class, which then opened up to white people in general because they saw that the poor folks were siding with poor people of color at the time, immigrants, and they were coming together because of the classist system. So how the structure has built out has been to keep those levels of those communities to be separate. We do have conversations around on topics of our impact, particularly as we navigate Capitol Hill and as we navigate Central District. I don't know how many of our staff are connected in that way to Central District, to Capitol Hill, that are actually actively engaged. As our work is pretty intensive, and as we live and work here, the majority of us live and work here. Now, when it comes to rates, we definitely have a conversation of looking at what's the rates in the greater area, and how do we make it comparable, and how do we make it affordable for our folks. Like, it actually is a great service for us to keep our rates lower than what is marketable out there, because we want to bring students on campus. We want them here with us, and now that we are expanding our housing inventory, we even more so are going to want students to be coming back to us to see us as a viable option for their housing, which will then hopefully open up, as a result of that, will open up to the greater community to have the ability to find the housing that is going to be supplemented, right? Right. I think the negative piece comes into how are we using our privilege as an institution, right? Like, and I think I think some of the tricky points. I don't know if it's necessary because of Seattle University or particularly where we are placed within Seattle, being Capitol Hill, but the luxury apartments that are getting built up, that are kind of getting built up surrounding the campus, is definitely a detraction. And I don't know how much of that is because Seattle University is where it is, or because of the cost of the land in this area. Right? Like, I don't know how to balance that, if that's the negative part of us. Like, because who we are and where we are, it's attractive for businesses to come around this location, and build up the area, which would be the negative aspect. How we are showing up in the community really depends upon if we're going to be that negative or positive. I think the things that are out of our control is how other people see this area and see either the benefit of Seattle University being here, or it's not being beneficial to the community. I think if we were a closed campus, I think it would be definitely a negative aspect for us. If we were actually close to anyone being in here that wasn't a part of Seattle U, I think it would be a huge difference of how our town and gown relationships were. But I actually think we have a decent town and gown relationship at this point. So open campus means like there are rarely any physical barriers stopping anyone from being able to cross into campus, right? I think there may be one physical barrier over between Chardon and Campion, right? That limits the amount of access that non-affiliate SCU people having access to get across our grounds. During the daytime, like the academic buildings are open, people can access those spaces, access the lobby areas. Non-affiliates be able to access the lunch area. C Street, they can go buy lunch there, and not have to necessarily have a SU ID to do that. So our physical footprint isn't ginormous. Now, when you go to our students and where our students are operating into a larger area of that, I think we do have an impact in the community for sure. I don't know how much we're impacting gentrification. I mean, the redoing of the youth detention center is super interesting. I don't know how much as Seattle University we could have input in what
Didn't
the
we
city
technically vote for
government,
it?
huh?
Didn't we technically vote for it? Didn't we end up voting for it
I don't know.
as a board?
I don't know if the trustees did. If they did, then yeah, that represents us as a gentrifying force. I think we are a gentrifying force. I just don't know at what level of impact that is. And I think it can be balanced. I think we have some good. I think the work we do with Center for Community Engagement and trying to have positive impacts within our surrounding communities, and the work that doesn't go through there, right? There's a ton that students do that we don't identify. There's a ton that staff and faculty do that we don't do, right? I think there's a lot more good than bad that I think we're a good force versus a negative force in the community. But we'll see. Time will tell.